Hi, everyone. Welcome to this great event. As we were talking before with Eric, it's good to at least we can stay connected this way. Of course, we all love in-person events, and well, hopefully we can resume those soon. But this situation, this virtuality things makes me the opportunity to present to your community. I'm presenting from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Right now is 9:45 a.m. in the morning. So the whole situation allowed me to share this content with you. So I'm really honored to be part of this event. All right. So the presentation is about SQL Server monitoring and troubleshooting using free community tools, right? So the idea is to have additional tools in our toolbox to be able to apply in certain situations when we have to do certain kind of diagnostic troubleshooting or something like that, right? So let's move on and okay. First of all, thank you to the sponsors, right? Without them, we cannot accomplish this kind of event. So thank you for being part of DBCC 2020 online edition. A little bit about myself. My name is Javier Villegas. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina. As I said, I work at Mediterranean Shipping Company. I'm in charge of the data platform strategy. I'm involved with Microsoft SQL Server since the early versions. My specialty is administration, performance tuning, high availability, disaster recovery, and most recently integration with Azure. I am Microsoft MVP in the data platform category, and I'm also Microsoft certified trainer. And as part of my community activities, I love to be a technical speaker and deliver this kind of sessions and presentations in different events. On the left side of the screen, you will see my contact information. Feel free to reach me by email, LinkedIn, or Twitter in case you want to stay connected, discuss something about this particular presentation or something that you would like to discuss with. Right? So I'm always happy to stay connected. So as we mentioned initially, right? Every DBA, every professional, every IT, specialist has this toolbox, and the idea today is to know few more. Maybe some of them you know it. Let's give some details from them. But the premise is that these are free solutions, right? Provided either by Microsoft or by different community experts from around the globe, and and we will try to see how we can use them. And the premise is that they are free. One important thing that we should consider in this case, and this is something that I love to mention all the time when I deliver this presentation, is that there is no magic that will fix bad code, right? And with that, I mean that we can have any kind of tooling, the most expensive one, the free ones, or the one that you build by your own, right? But with none of them, we're going to be able to fix code that is written poorly, right? So one of the things that I like to emphasize is that we should definitely spend time and resources with the developer teams, right? Explaining them to them how to write T-SQL code using best practices and following them, right? So, if we spend, let's say, a couple of hours a week or once a month, or any investment you can do in teaching them how to follow those rules, definitely those are going to be things that in the short future will help you to avoid, doing troubleshooting, right? So this is something just to consider. So if we consider a troubleshooting process, what we should do, right? First of all, this is something that requires us to be connected all the time. This is not something that, let's say, one day, we have a problem and we will say, oh, let's see what happened. No, this is a continuous process, right? Which requires a bunch of things. Some of them are, repeatable, but definitely we should observe our environment. And with that, I'm mentioning that we need to capture what we call baselines, right? These baselines will provide something to compare with when the system is not running as we would like to, or when it's affected by a problem, right? So continuously running these processes and having this baseline will allow us to, for example, when we're in troubles, compare I/O statistics, CPU usage, memory usage, weight type, memory grants, etc. Right? So we will be able to compare and find easily where the problems are, right? And with that, we can take actions, right? Fix those problems and start the process again, right? And repeat again. Continue monitoring, update our baseline, right? And when we have a problem, do this comparison, right? This is something really important on every single troubleshooting process. So here are some of the topics that we will cover during the presentation. You will see that at the top, we have the ones that are coming within the Microsoft SQL solution, right? Most of them are coming with the SQL tooling, with Management Studio, the new Azure Data Studio, etc., right? But we also have in the bottom part of the agenda, the ones that we would like to cover from different community experts. So let's start. First of all, we're going to mention a little bit about Perfmon Monitor and Profiler. And if we go back to what I said earlier, these are the most important tools that we can use to capture this baseline, right? With Perfmon Monitor, we can capture metrics and values from the host systems in terms of I/O, CPU, memory, but we can also take information based on SQLs, right? Like, for example, transaction per second, batch request per second, number of compilation, recompilation, etc. With Profiler, we can basically run it and capture all the stuff that is running in our SQL Server instance, right? And based on the filters that we set up and the counters that we would like to capture, right, we're going to get this trace. So most probably you already know all this, right? And these are the first tool that we get involved with when doing troubleshooting. But we will see that there is something that not everybody knows, that basically allow us to combine the information that we capture from Profiler and Perfmon Monitor to do a better troubleshooting process, right? And with this combination, we can overlap the data and we can go at any point in time and see what was happening at the host level as well as within the SQL Server usage, right? And with that, we're going to correlate the events really quickly and simple. So then we have SQL Server Activity Monitor, right? This is a tool that is coming with Management Studio. It's a tool that is a simple dashboard that we can see, for example, the most expensive queries that we have running on the servers, wait type, CPU usage, etc., etc. Right? This is a tool, also an old tool, but we're going to see a specific thing that basically revamp this tool, especially with the latest SQL Server version, right? And this is the last line that you see there, lightweight query profiling, right? We're going to see a demo that will illustrate what I'm talking about. But just to give you a heads up, right? Let's imagine that we have this process, a report, a store procedure, or anything that you imagine that runs overnight, right? Let's say 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. And normally it takes 30 minutes to complete. That day you arrive to the office, you take your cup of coffee, you sit down, and you get that phone call from management saying, hey, this report that I should have in my inbox already, I still don't get it. So what's going on? So then we start, using all these tools that we're going to be covering today, right? And we find that this report is still running. But, here is when we have one of the problems. So we don't know exactly at which part of the execution we are at. Right? If it is at the 10% of the execution, at half of the execution, or about to finish, right? Knowing this information will help us to take better decisions, right? For example, if it is about to finish, we say, okay, maybe we wait a few more minutes and it's going to be completed. If it is just starting, right, we know that we have to take another kind of measures. We're going to see how we can do it with this activity monitor. Additionally, we also have in Management Studio, the Performance Dashboard report, right? These are reports that are based in reporting services, RDL files, which several years ago you have to download the package, install it separately, apply some script to the MSDB database, etc. But now they are part of Management Studio. So you can go to any instance, right, and run these performance dashboard reports. We're going to see it in action in a few minutes. We also have one of the most important things that SQL Server has, right, which are dynamic management objects, right? These are views and table value functions, which are read-only, right, which allows SQL Server to interact with us, right? So when we query these objects, these DMOs, or let's call it DMBs, right? We get certain type of information about the SQL Server health in different areas. For example, here I just put some of them, right? But there are a bunch of this, right? For example, in the transactional space, we can see the status of a transaction, if it is active, if it is located in which database. For the indexes, we can see if the indexes are, how they've been used, if they are used incorrectly or not, if there are missing indexes. Then we have statistics, information about query stats and execution plan, but we also have DMBs related to HADR, right? Like just to get information of always on availability groups, replication, everything, right? And just to make it clear, this is the base of SQL Server monitoring. So every single tool that we connect to our instance to do monitoring, even if it is free, if it is Management Studio, or if it is, a paid solution, relies on these dynamic management views, right, to collect the health information from our SQL Server instance, right? So this is extremely important, right? As I said, here we have just of them, but the list is huge, and there are several categories, right? Then we move on to extended events, right? Earlier, we talked about Profiler, right, which is one tool that is coming from one of the first SQL Server versions, and it's a tool that we use a lot, right? But it's a little bit tricky, right? Because let's say that if you're trying to troubleshoot on an environment that is having performance issues, right? And if you don't use Profiler properly, right? Let's say you don't specify the proper filters, etc., you might be adding more problems to the situation than the one that you are trying to figure it out and solve, right? So you have to be very careful on how you use Profiler. On the other hand, we have extended events, right? Which is where Microsoft is doing all the investments this day. Profiler is still there. We're gonna have it in the future, right? But they are not doing anything in terms of improving it, right? And in the other hand, extended events, they are, adding more and more and more features to collect. It's going to allow us to do the same thing that we do with Profiler, even more, right? But in a more lightweight way, right? So we don't affect performance on SQL Server. So these extended events are, we're going to see a couple of examples here. We have like the component, right? The package, the event, predicate, action, target, and you will see that when we start defining one of these, you will notice that it's quite familiar to what you know from Profiler. Another important thing of any troubleshooting process is the query plans, right? When you are doing some troubleshooting and you have to see what is the plan of the query that you're trying to run, you can get it in XML, you can get it as a graph, you can get your execution plan and do your analysis, right? So this is coming from Management Studio, right? And recently, a few versions back, Microsoft added this possibility of having live execution stats, right? So we can run a statement, right, and see the execution stat in a live way, right? So we can see how it is progressing and moving all around the way, right? And with that, we jump into this first tool that is .Microsoft, which is the Plan Explorer, right? This is a free tool that you can download from the SentryOne site, right? Which you can use it in two different ways. As a plugin of Management Studio, right? Or as an external application. And with that, you can, let's say, feed Plan Explorer with the plan that is generated by SQL Server, and you can do a better analysis, or you have better tools, right, to do troubleshooting and to understand how the query plan is going on and how to, let's say, adjust it, adapt it, or modify, right? So this is a tool that everybody should have in their toolbox, right? Okay, so then we have Query Store that was introduced back in SQL Server 2016, right? This Query Store, I like to call it like the flight recorder of the SQL Server user databases, because after you enable it, Query Store on a particular user database, right? SQL Server will automatically capture all the statistics, runtime statistic, plan cache changes, execution times, resource usage. Everything that happens within your user database is going to be logged into this Query Store database. And then we will have different tools to get reports on how our workload on that particular user database is doing, right? And eventually we can even force a particular query or procedure or process, right, to use a fixed execution plan that was better in the past than what it is right now, right? So it's a really useful tool. Query Store is enabled by default in Azure SQL Database, right? But in SQL Server on-premise, you have to enable it database per database in a manual way. So here we have some screenshot on how we can see a particular process that has changed or executing over time, and you can see the execution times, etc., and do comparison. Right. In this case, you can also see the top 25 resource consumers during the last hour. Right, and with that you can use this information to do troubleshooting, because SQL Server is providing you the processes that are taking most of their resources. When I say resources, is not only duration, right? It's CPU, memory, and weight, right? Eventually you can modify and force the plan as we said. So let's go to the first part of the demo just to cover a few of the things that we've been discussing till now. So I have this virtual machine, right? And I have here the latest version of SQL Server Management Studio, right? And what I'm going to do here is that here at we have this option that is to enable live query statistics, right? When we do that, as we said earlier, we're going to see the execution plan live. But note that we're going to see something else, right? So let's run this example. And when we go here we have something new, right? See here, estimated query process, right? So besides seeing how the different operators are moving and feeding our query, right? We see the estimated query progress. We see it here and also at the bottom, right? Executing query. So we can, let's say, identify in an estimated way at which percentage of the execution we are at, right? And with that, we can take better decisions. So I'm going to cancel this one. I will run the one that I have down here. And again, right, you see how the query is progressing, right? And with that, you can take better decisions, right? 8%, 9%, and so on, right? So with that, you have this estimated query progress. The feature name, as we said, is lightweight query profiling, right? Which is something that is enabled by default in SQL Server 2019. Something good that Microsoft is doing these days is that some of these good features, right, they are porting it back to previous SQL Server version, right? So we have this feature in 2016 and 2017, right? In those cases, the feature is disabled, right, by default, and we have to enable it using a trace flag, right? So eventually, if we would like to use this in 2016 or 17, there is a trace flag to enable it, right? So now you can tell me, wow, this is good, I like it, but my queries don't run in Management Studio. I have a middle tier or a web server or something that is hitting my SQL Server. So how can I see the query, the estimated query progress if I run the workload from something that is not Management Studio? Okay, so what I have here is one script, right? No, sorry, not this one. What is the batch file? Okay, This one simulates activity on the SQL Server database. I have several demo databases on this instance, right? And it's just generating random workload, right? So with that, we have activity on the server. So if we go to Activity Monitor, right click Activity Monitor. This is, as we said earlier, this tool is not new. It's been there for a while. We see this, counters. We see all the processes. We see statistics related to I/O, recent expensive queries, etc., etc. And down here, we have this one called active expensive queries. These are the queries that are running in this moment and are the most expensive one. So if we go here and we do right click, notice, right, that now we have the option show live execution plan. So if we come here from any of the processes that are currently running against my instance, right, I see the live plan and I also see the estimated query progress, right? So it's not only queries that we run through Management Studio, these are also all the queries that are running against my SQL Server instance, right? And as I said earlier, with that, we can take better decisions. So from my point of view, extremely powerful to do troubleshooting. Then, as we said, we can go to any of the databases. We can do right click. And here we have the option to do reports, right? So we go here to standard reports and we see a bunch of reports that are coming from our SQL Server. Like, for example, we can do backup and restore event. Well, I don't have much. Disk usage by table, right? So here we're going to come up with this nice report telling us which table is consuming most of the disk, right? So we have this embedded into our Management Studio. So then let's do something briefly with what we mentioned about Profiler and Perfmon and Monitor, right? So I will go. Frank, you tell me how we are with the time, right? I'm terrible with with that.
We have. I think we have 5 minutes left, so it's a little bit overdue, but you can. I think 5 minutes is okay.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Okay. So let's move on to the presentation then, so we can cover more. So all these demos will be available for you to watch later if you want, and you want to have the scripts to download, right? So we have this phone calls, right? Saying, hey, DBA, why my application is so slow, right? Why my query are taking so long. So those are the things that we normally get through the phone. Till now, we just covered all the solutions coming within Microsoft SQL Server, right? So now let's gonna cover some of the ones that are created by different community experts, right? SP Who's Active, which was created by Adam Mechanic several years ago, right? Basically, what it does, it consumes information from all these dynamic management views, right? And provide you with a picture of the activity that is happening within the SQL Server, right? So let's say it's going to tell you all the active sessions, for how long they've been running, the amount of resources that are using in terms of duration, CPU, memory, etc., 10 DB usage, right? And it's really very lightweight, right? You will see that we can run it and we take a picture of our server right now. And with that, when we notice that our server is running slow, right? We take this picture and we know what is happening at this particular moment, right? So definitely a tool that everybody must have. spwhosactive.com. It's open source. You can download it. And you can run it without any parameters, and but the documentation tells you a little bit more how you can customize the execution if you would like to, right? Then several years back, I create my own version of spwhosactive called spdba currently exec, which basically is a wrapper of spwhosactive, just capturing the or rendering the information in a different way, right? So if the server detects that there are logs in your system, it's going to return it in a different way. So it's in my GitHub, so you can feel free to download, use it, and provide feedback if you want. Additionally, we have this solution coming from Brent Dosart, the first responder kit, right? This is a package that you can download it, and it gets updated every month, right? And there have several components, right? These components are SP Blitz, which allow you to, you can run it against your instance, and it will do all the analysis that it has to do since the SQL Server was started, right? And also, with the current configuration and settings, and we'll compare it against the best practices, right? And we'll give you, a list sorted by some sort of priority, which the one that you have to address first. Like, for example, if you are not doing backups, if you are not running your maintenance, DBCC check DB, if you have too many sysadmin, etc., right? So a tool that is good to do this analysis. SP versus Blitz first is, similar to the SP Blitz, but what it does is it will give you what is happening on your SQL Server now, and again, what it captures and measures it versus the best practices or baseline, and will give you this information. SP Blitz cache will go through all the PLANL cache on your instance, right? And will provide you with a detailed report of all the problems that you may see or you may have with your plans, right? And will also give you the documentation on how to fix those plans. And SP Blitz index will give you all the details related to your index strategy, if they are correctly used, if you have duplicate indexes, if you have missing indexes, etc., right? Additionally, you can run this solution on a SQL shop and store the data on a user database, and with a Power BI report, come up with some sort of dashboard to tell you graphically how your server is doing. The Microsoft SQL Server Tiger team also have this script called BP Check, which is best practice checker, right? Again, we'll compare your instance versus the Microsoft baseline, and we'll provide you all the recommendations to fix it. Glenberry SQL Server diagnostic queries, right? Will also will do a deep analysis of your configuration, and will provide you information on how to fix those problems, right? You will see that there are several, points here that overlaps within one solution and the other, right? But again, it's good to be aware of all of them, because some of them are important for different or more useful in different situations than others, right? But knowing the Brent Dosart solution, the Tiger Team solution, and Glenberry solution, as I said, you may have some overlapping, but it's good to know them all, right? And these resources are being updated constantly, right? Glenberry solution, you can get a very detailed report like this. Additionally, we have PowerShell and DBA tools, right? This is a community open source free solution that allow you to run any kind of activities against your SQL Server. And this is extremely useful when you have to do this in multiple servers, right? If you have one or two instances, maybe it's not too useful. But if you have a big number of instances distributed around the world, right? You can run this and get and collect information from all those instances, right? There are different categories of activities that you can do through DBA tools, right? You can, as I said, go and collect information from all these instances constantly, right? dbatools.io. I really encourage you to use them. I feel myself using more PowerShell these days than Management Studio, right? The new tool coming from Microsoft, Azure Data Studio, right, which is the multi-platform solution to connect to SQL Server on-prem, hybrid in Azure, right? You can have these notebooks with all the solutions that we mentioned earlier, PPCheck, Glansberry diagnostic queries, and any toolbooks that you can create and run it is going to be really useful to for you to run. So Azure Data Studio is something to consider. When you have to do maintenance, right? Backups, integrity checks, update the statistic, index statistics, all a Hallangren maintenance solution is something that must have, right? So forget about working with your own script, right? Take a look of all a Hallangren solution. If you want to do something similar, but graphically speaking, right, there is a solution called SQL Index Manager, which shows you in a graphical way your index status, fragmentation, etc. And from the tool, you can generate the script to do the index rebuild. I have the demo with all this, but we are running out of time. So I'm just finishing with the last one I just want to mention, SQL Watch IO, right? Based on SQL Shop that will collect information from your server, will collect it into a user database, and with Power BI, you can generate this kind of report, right? That will tell you what is happening in your environment. A quick mention of Redgate SQL Monitor, which is not free, but it's a good solution to consider if you have a big enterprise, right? And let's skip this one. Here I have some of the references, right, of what we've been discussing. Questions, which since we don't have time, I encourage you to contact me through my Twitter or LinkedIn so we can keep moving and discussing on this matter. And with that, thank you for attending to my session today.
Thank you very much, Javier. One more question. It was a very interesting session. Do we have a longer version of this somewhere online on the internet, on YouTube or something like this?
I'm working on.
Very cool.
Because I find myself running out of time. This is a demo-driven session.
Yeah. Sure. If you have, just ping me a link or something like this, and I can add it to the session on our website. Okay,
absolutely.
I will.
I'm gonna go through one of the previous recording, and I will send it to you later.
Very cool. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the conference. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.